Work, bills, the cost of living, keeping up with your favorite TV shows. We all have so much going on in our lives that you can find yourself becoming overwhelmed. However, if we don't work on dealing with overwhelm, then it can lead to stress, and stress can lead to burnout. And trust me when I tell you from first-hand experience that working on preventing burnout is much better than trying to find your way out of it once you feel burnt out. So, if you find yourself wondering what to do when you are overwhelmed, then this video will help you. Today I'm talking about what is overwhelm, why overwhelm happens, and how to stop being overwhelmed. So, let's talk about overwhelm. Let's face it, we all get overwhelmed sometimes. The other weekend, I had everything happen at once, including unexpectedly adopting a stray kitten, and then our dishwasher died. I know, first world problems, right? And my immediate reaction was, come on, give me a break. But overcoming overwhelm doesn't just happen because you ask for a break. It takes work. But luckily, there are a few simple things you can do to deal with overwhelm in the moment, as well as ways that you can reduce overwhelm longer term. And in a minute, I'll talk you through a few ways to do that and tell you where you can find even more practical tips. But first, let's quickly talk about what is overwhelm. And it's basically that feeling you get when you have so much going on that you either don't know where to start or where you just don't feel like you're making any progress, or both. You might feel overwhelmed at home where there are lots of different commitments and tasks competing for your attention, or maybe you're overwhelmed at work, especially when it feels like there are just too many things that need to be done and not enough time to do them, or where your boss just keeps on heaping more and more work onto you and then constantly bombarding you with phone calls to ask when you're going to be done with all of that work. I had a boss who used to do that, and it took every single ounce of self-control to not scream at him to just let me do my work, and then maybe he wouldn't need to check if the work was done. But enough about my trauma from my past career in the corporate sector. If you're a student, then you're probably all too familiar with the fact that assignments all seem to be due at the exact same time. I mean, seriously, what is that? Whatever the reason is, when you feel overwhelmed, you might struggle to make much progress or any progress because you just feel inundated with too many commitments. And maybe you end up going into shutdown mode. And that leads to my next point, why overwhelm happens. And aside from it happening because we feel like we have too much on, it can also be commonly associated with stress, as well as mental health conditions like anxiety. The thing is that we all have different thresholds when it comes to managing stress, and it can be affected by not only what's going on in your life, but also the wider world as well. There could be things like home responsibilities, work commitments, family, pets, friends, pesky neighbors, financial issues, politics, the environment, living in the middle of a pandemic and trying to go about your business, general health concerns, other people doing stupid things, trying to keep up with all the Drag Race franchises. I mean, I could sit here and list things all day long, but that would probably be fairly overwhelming for me and for you. The point is that we tend to have a lot of things going on all at once and competing for our attention, both at home and in the wider world. And at the same time, our capacity for managing all of that is going to depend on what's happening in our lives at any given time, as well as how our overall health and well-being is going. So when you're struggling with your mental health, you might find that feeling overwhelmed happens more frequently. Like I said, it does tend to go hand in hand with anxiety for a lot of people. So it's important to be proactive about looking after your physical and mental health and managing your stress levels in order to minimize the risk of becoming overwhelmed, because prevention really is better than cure. However, you're still likely to experience periods of overwhelm sometimes, even with taking a proactive approach to managing stress. So let's talk about how to stop being overwhelmed. And I have 3 tips to get you started when overwhelm happens, beginning with pause and reflect. So take a few minutes to sit and gently breathe in order to calm yourself down, and then ask yourself what you're really feeling and why. Because a lot of the initial overwhelmed reaction that we might have is because we're feeling worried or overworked or unsupported, etc. When you know what you're really feeling, you can begin to look at things more clearly and focus on solutions. decisions. Which leads to my next point. Make a list and prioritize. Because I don't know about you, but when I sit down and get everything out of my head and down onto paper, it helps me to feel less overwhelmed. Because then I can start to be more objective about it all, and I can make some sense of it, instead of letting those thoughts just float around in my head, stressing me out. So write down everything that's on your mind that you need to get done, and then assign a priority to it based on when things are due and how important they are to you in line with your general focus in life. So the point here is that if it matters, then make it matter, but I'm going to guess that a lot of the stuff you feel overwhelmed by probably doesn't matter in the big scheme of things, so let it go. You can't do everything all at once, and so sometimes you need to prioritize because there really are only so many hours in a day. And so then my next point is one thing at a time, because again, you cannot do everything all at once. And honestly, multitasking just does not work. All you end up doing is a bunch of things poorly instead of doing one thing at a time to the best of your ability. When you do just one thing at a time, you help yourself to focus and it makes it less stressful. And also, please stop trying to cram 50 different things into your diary each day. I start my morning by writing down the 3 to 5 main things I need to achieve that day on a post-it note. Then I tick them off as I go, and it feels so satisfying to throw that note away at the end of the day. The point here is don't try to do more than what you can reasonably manage, and work at a calmer pace so that you can reduce that feeling of being overwhelmed. So how do you deal with overwhelm? Let me know in the comments below, I'd love to know. And you'll find even more practical tips for dealing with overwhelm in episode 147 of my podcast, Let's Talk About Mental Health, which is linked in the episode description. And I mentioned stress before, which many of us deal with from time to time, and in this video I cover 5 simple ways to tackle stress that actually work. Click here to watch it next, and subscribe to my channel for more weekly videos about looking after your mental health. Thanks so much for joining me today. Take care and talk to you next time.